Hope you're having a great day. On Monday, Miss Schuhart came by to pick up a book for Sunday school, and as she picked up the book, we we're just standing and talking, and she said the kids were coming by the house to pick up the tools. They have tools. They have boxes of tools that were sitting around the house that they've collected over time. And as their kids are coming to pick up these tools, they're like, Mom and Dad, how do we get so many tools? And Mr. and Miss Schuhart could go through the tools and tell them, well, that tool right there is actually your grandfather's tool. That tool over there, that was your aunt and uncle's tool. That tool over there, our next door neighbor gave it to me when our fence was broken. That all the stuff they had came from somewhere. There was a story behind it. And that got me thinking, how many things of the church that we see all the time, is there a story behind it? My desk, where did my desk come from? It came from a member of church. My desk when I was hired was a metal battleship desk. It was a huge thing. It was all beat up. I'd actually tried to clean the desk when I got it. It was so beat up. And so we're looking for something else. And then all of a sudden one of the members in church said, hey, we're getting rid of our office stuff. And all this stuff that you see in my office is all from that member. The pulpit. Pulpit we see every single week. Who made that? My grandfather made that. My grandfather made the pulpit, the podium, and then he made those shelvings that's in my dad's office. In fact, at one point, as they were moving the shelvings, I was helping my dad hammer them together. And my grandfather could only lift his arm past his shoulder anyway. He was frustrated with me trying to hit this nail in. He took the hammer from me, took his arm, literally, held the hammer with it, and took his other arm so he could hit it. I was doing so bad of a job. There's a story behind it. The wiring that we have for the video projectors. That was a gift from a guy I went to high school with. What else? Those hideous chairs that are in the 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-year-old room. They're from one of the building programs the church went through. If I remember correctly, I think it was $13. You pay $13, you could buy a chair. So many things around us that we see all the time we take for granted because we just see them all the time. But they have a history behind them. Today we're going to learn about never forget the Lord's hand on your life. Never take for granted the Lord's hand on your life. So look and see the blessings. Look and see the blessings that are around you. We've been going through the life of David. Today we're looking at 2 Samuel chapter 8, 2 Samuel chapter 10. And we're going to see the blessings of God. Look and see the blessings. 2 Samuel 8, 1 Chronicles 18, both recount the same exact thing. They are the blessings that surrounded David. We see one of these histories where there's a list of all these things that are around. They list out chariots, shields of gold, vessels of gold and silver, bronze, the cities that David conquered, the garrisons he set up, the extension of the border of the kingdoms. 2 Samuel 8 is a list of all the things that David accomplished. Then we get to Samuel chapter 10, and we see an example of how David got these things. So why did God include multiple reports about this in the Bible? Why do we have the same thing in 2 Samuel 8 and 1 Chronicles 18? Why is he doing it? 1 Chronicles 18 and 2 Samuel 8 both contain this one thought, that God fought for David. 2 Samuel 8 verse 6, and the Lord preserved David wherever he went. 2 Samuel 8:14, and the Lord preserved David wherever he went. 1 Chronicles 18:6, thus the Lord preserved David wherever he went. 1 Chronicles 18:13, thus the Lord preserved David wherever he went. I can see a father looking at his child and saying, this gold, silver, chariot, shield, horses did not come for free. We received some of them because we defeated the enemy, because David defeated the enemy. Others he received as tribute from other countries. Our kingdom is bigger because of what David did. All these things that you see, the freedoms that you live in, they weren't free. They cost us something. In fact, David knew where his success came from. He even dedicated some of the gold and silver to God. The thought seems to be, guys, everything that you see, the peace, the prosperity, the joy, the freedom that you're experiencing, it is because God preserved David wherever he went. 1 Chronicles contains most of the same information, but it does include one slight different thing. It says the bronze that was recovered was used for Solomon's bronze sea. Whatever that was. But there seems to be a point here to the people. You can see the good things of God. That bronze sea that's over there, whatever that thing is, that came from David. That came from David. And how did David get it? Because the Lord preserved David wherever he went. You need to know where they came from. How does this apply to us? We have many things that are very nice. Home, car, phone, food, etc. Sometimes it's good to stop and see what we have. Not to brag on ourselves, but to realize the Lord preserved me wherever I want. My home that I live in. Was it because I worked hard? Sure. But it was because the Lord preserved me. My car. Was it because I was a great businessman? Well, sure. But because the Lord preserved me. There are things in your life that have been given to you by God. You're the one that saved the money to buy the car. You're the one that earned every penny in your bank account. But God gave you the ability to save the money. You think you're great at saving money. You think that you're a great businessman. All that has to happen is you have a heart attack. And all of a sudden those bills pile up, or you get in a car accident, or something happens with your car, and all of a sudden you have to replace stuff. God preserves us wherever you go. There are things that you have been given by God. Never forget that God is working with you. The Lord preserves me wherever I go. There are things that others have given you. And these are usually easier to take for granted because you've always had them. I talked to Anna Grace on the phone today. I talked to her the last 3 days. On Monday, Anna Grace wanted to sit there and eat while she was watching her anatomy class maybe. And so she was going out to get her food, and Mr. Stinnett, Jill's dad, asked her, "Hey, sweetheart, where are you going?" She said, "I'm going to go to Wendy's. I want to pick up some fries and a Frosty. Real healthy, no protein in there anywhere." And Mr. Stinnett's like, "Princess, I'll take care of you. Go back to the house. I'll pick up the Wendy's French fries and ice cream for her." That was Monday. On Tuesday, they picked up Chick-fil-A minis for her. On Wednesday, she talked to me, and she was eating Chinese food. I'm like, "Anna Grace, you are so loved. Do not forget that there are things that others have given you." I have never in my life been worried about my next meal. Always knew there was money for food. So what happens? I take it for granted. I've never worried if my parents would come home. My parents were not police officers, firemen, soldiers. I've taken it for granted that they would be safe. I know that if I ever ran out of money, I can go to my parents, my brother, Jill's folks, and they will take care of me. The support structure that is under me and my family is immense. But I need to stop and remember the Lord has preserved me wherever I go. So what do we need to do? Stop and think and remember. Praise Him for what He has done. That is the purpose of 2 Samuel chapter 8. It is sitting and showing everyone around what David had to do. But it wasn't because of David. It was because of what God did. Now that we have been reminded that God gives us a lot of good things, it makes sense to start hearing how God gave them. Move on from the general to the specific story of how God preserved them. Is it just a phrase that I use? Oh, God preserved me. Or is there a story behind it that you can actually see a tremendous miracle that God happened? In both 2 Samuel and Chronicles, they follow the telling of the blessing to a story how it happened. You can see the good things of God. You need to know what it cost to get the blessings. In my house, there's a dining room table. We have a dining room table, dining room set. There's a hutch, there's some other stuff. But we didn't always have it. When we lived in our townhouse, it was one of the things Jill wanted. Jill wanted a dining room table. And we didn't have money. We had a cheap little dining room table that was like pressed wood or something. It wasn't real wood. And it was what we needed. It was what it accomplished the goal. But Jill wanted a nice dining room table. One that was real wood. And we didn't have the money for it. Those things cost $1,000. We didn't have $1,000 to spend on a dining room table. And I remember her talking about it. I remember her crying about it. She really, really wanted it. And we were saving money. We were trying to, but it's a lot of money to spend on a dining room table when you're trying to come up with enough money to have a baby. We had Anna Grace at the time. Incest coming on. It's tough. Then a member at church contacted us and said they were throwing their dining room stuff away. We had never told anybody in church, at least to my knowledge. And they contacted us and said, "Hey, look, we're going to throw our dining room stuff away. We just thought, did you want it or not?" The dining room stuff we have today came from that family member. That is a story of God. My kids look at the dining room table and they're like, "Yeah, it's always been there." Because it has been. Their entire life, that dining room table has been there. It was not there for us. God had to do something tremendous, a tremendous story, where that dining room table came from an act of God you need to remember the struggle. First thing you have to do is look and see the blessings. Remember them. See them. You open your eyes. See the things that are around you. But then the second thing is remember the struggle. Remember what it took to get there. Found this illustration in Folk Psalms of Faith. Ray Stedman tells this story of an experience H.A. Ironside had in a crowded restaurant. If you know anything about H.A. Ironside, he is not subtle. Just as Ironside was about to begin his meal, a man approached and asked if he could join him. Ironside said, "Sure, you are welcome to sit here." Then, as his custom, Ironside bowed his head in prayer. When he opened his eyes, the other man looked at him and said, "Do you have a headache? What's wrong? How come you bowed your head? Is there something wrong with your food?" Ironside replied and said, "No, I was simply thanking God, as I always do before I eat." The man said, "Oh, you're one of those, are you? Well, I want you to know I never give thanks. I earn my money by the sweat of my brow, and I don't have to give thanks to anybody when I eat. I just start right in." Ironside said, "Yes, you're just like my dog. That's what he does too." We certainly would never say that to someone today, because that certainly is rude. But the point is a true point. If you stop and you remember what God has done for you, you'll give him praise. Remember the struggle. Remember the struggle. And that's what 2 Samuel chapter 10 tells us. It is the struggle. It is how God worked in a miraculous way so David could have the blessings of 2 Samuel chapter 8. 2 Samuel chapter 10. 2 Samuel chapter 10, starting in verse 1. "And it came to pass after this that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his stead. Then David said, I will show kindness unto Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to console him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hanun their lord, Thinkest thou that David does honor thy father, that he sent some comforters unto thee? Hath not David rather sent his servants unto thee to search the city, and to spy it out, and to overthrow it? Wherefore Hanun took David's servant, and shaved off one half of their beards, and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. There will be those that oppose you. They will question your motives. They will embarrass you. Chronicles says that they shaved half their beards. What's going on here? The king of Ammon, his father died. So David says, I'm going to send some people out, some servants out, just to show my condolences. I'm so sorry that he died. Is there anything that we can do to help you, basically? And the king of Ammon had some advisors that said, these people really aren't true. They're really spies trying to seek out the land. And the king of Ammon then embarrasses these servants, cuts their clothes, sends them home with half a beard. They questioned David's motives. They embarrassed him. What else did they do? Verse 6 and 7. When the children of Ammon saw that they had become odious before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob and the Syrians of Zobab, 20,000 footmen, and the king of Maacah, 1,000 men, and of Tob, 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. They are working to destroy David. What is going on here? They've embarrassed the servants of David. As the servants of David come back, David goes and sends them out and is like, I am sorry, you're embarrassed. Stay at Jericho. No need to come back to Jerusalem. We're not trying to embarrass you. You've done a good job. But David then becomes angry at Ammon. And it says, the Bible says they became odious to David. What does that mean? It merely means that they know that David's mad at them. And so what did they do? They reach out to the Syrians and get a large army. We are now ready. We are going to fight David. There's a point you're going to feel hopeless. You need to remember the work of God. That's what we're talking about here. This is the work of God. You look around, you see all the nice things, and the father's telling the son, this is how we got the nice thing. David was trying to be a nice guy. And the nation of Ammon didn't like it. And they really wanted to start a fight with us. And they reached out to a bunch of Syrians. They had a bigger army than we did. And David goes ahead, he takes the all the host of the mighty men. All these mighty warriors, David brings his army into the field. Verse 8, And the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entrance of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobab, of Rehob, and of Tob, and of Maacah were by themselves in the field. And Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him before and behind. He chose of all the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians, and the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. Yeah, okay, son, all those nice things you have, you think all these battles were easy. I'm telling you, this battle was amazing. We go out to fight, and there's soldiers in front of us. We go to attack the city, and the people of Ammon come out from the city. And as we go to meet them, we realize that the people of Syria are behind us. This situation is hopeless. I cannot fight this battle, and it does not look like I'm going to win. Was it a trap? Was it a bad tactical decision Joab made? Don't really know. But the situation isn't good. You can see the problem. You don't see a way out. You are surrounded. Whoops, I'm in trouble. Don't forget, this story is being told to following generations. This is like one of those stories your grandfather told you about. You can see the kids sitting forward on the edge of their seat as they're like, okay, Dad, I can see the battle in my head. Joab is surrounded. He's given his brothers some men, and they're going to fight the ones in the front, and Joab takes others, and he turns around to face the Syrian. This is exciting. Defeat is ensured, but they already know they're going to win because they're surrounded by the victory. But the kids are excited as they're listening. What do you have to do? You do the best you can. Verse 10 and verse 11, he said, if the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will come and help thee. Joab says, hey, look, I don't know if this is going to work. Go ahead, brother, you attack the front. If they're too strong for you, I'm going to try to come up and reinforce you. I'm going to attack the back. And look, if they're too strong for me, come and support me. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to do the best I can, but I have to leave it at God's feet. Verse 12, be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people, and for the cities of our God. And the Lord do that which seemeth to him good. What is he saying? Brother, you do the best you can. Be of good courage. We got to play the men. We got to act like men. Why? Because we're terrified. This is not a battle that I think I can win. We got to play the men. Who? Why? For our people. We have to do it for the cities of our God. These cities out here were promised us. We need to play the men. I know we're scared, but let's go forward. Why? Be of good courage. It sounds a little bit like Joshua, doesn't it? Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So we have Joab and Abishai headed into battle. Ammon in the front, Syrians in the back. The situation looks hopeless. And God gives an amazing victory. And Joab drew near, and the people who were with him unto the battle against the Syrians. And the Syrians fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled, then fled they also before Abishai, and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon, and came to Jerusalem. What happens in verse 13 and 14? Joab turns and fights the Syrians. And in the fight, the Syrians break and run. So Joab then turns, and when Ammon sees that the Syrians have run, Ammon runs back into the city. Kids, this is how we got all those nice things. This battle that we were supposed to lose, we won in a tremendous way. That is the God we serve. That he was with David in all things. And he's with us in all things. God gives an amazing victory. So Joab returns to Jerusalem. What does that mean? It means the army isn't big enough to lay siege to the city. And so they come back to Jerusalem. And in chapter 11, we're going to get to what happens with this city. Verse 15. And when the Syrians saw that they were smitten before Israel, they gathered themselves together. And Hadadezer sent and brought out the Syrians who were beyond the river. And they came to Helam. And to Shobach, the captain of the host of Hadadezer, went before them. What happens here? When the Syrians broke and ran, they reformed their forces. They reformed their forces, and now we're going to have a battle between Syria and David. Verse 17. And when it was told David, he gathered all Israel together and passed over the Jordan and came to Helam. And the Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. And the Syrians fled before Israel. And David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of the host, who died there. And when all the kings who were servants to Hadarezer saw that they were smitten before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon anymore. Kids, the peace that you have right now, where Syria doesn't attack, this is where we want it. It was a battle we weren't supposed to win, but we had a God that could do whatever He wants. Why? Because God was with David wherever he went. You have many blessings of God because of God's wonderful, wonderful works in your life. What are you supposed to do? You are supposed to remember. And then the encouragement is to walk close to Him. It is interesting to note that this great victory may really be close to David's huge fall with Bathsheba. The next chapter is David's sin with Bathsheba. What is the moral of this story and the ongoing struggles of David? It's to walk close with God. It's to walk close with God because God will walk close to you. There's a story told. There's a story told of a young kid that was born with a club foot, but was taken on as a caddy. He could work as a caddy to other golfers. He was a wonderfully sweet-natured boy, quick-witted, willing, and had a nose for golf. Everybody liked him. His name was William. But William had a club foot. But that didn't affect his quality as a caddy. It was a pleasure to go out with him. A certain famous doctor, a member of the club, became very interested in William and began to take him on his golfing outings. As he went golfing, he requested William to be a caddy. And then eventually he asked William, will you go with me to a trip to the south? I have a place I want to take you. When William returned, he went back to caddying. The doctor, however, had to give up golf shortly after that because of his health. He died a few months later. One morning, I was playing a round of golf with William, and I saw him collecting some flowers. And I asked him, hey, William, who's the lucky girl? Who are you giving the flowers to? And he said, I haven't any girl. They're for my friend, the doctor. Twice a week I take flowers to his grave. You see, the doctor that took me down south that winter operated on my foot. He made me whole again. And I never want to forget the doctor's act of kindness. Guys, God has blessed us immensely in our life. We look around and we are surrounded by God's blessings. Even when it doesn't feel like it. If you look around, you can see God's hand in everything. He's taken us to places we could not go by ourselves. He has fixed problems with us that we could not fix by ourselves. Be grateful. Never forget the Lord's hand on your life. You can see the blessings, but remember the struggle. It'll help you walk close to God. Thanks a lot, guys. Dear Lord, thank you for being our God. Thank you for watching over us every single day. Lord, help us to honor and glorify you with our lives. Help us to see your hand on our lives and help us to walk close to you. I love you and I pray. Amen.